Hey, welcome to another section of the Boat Expo. We have Ken Wahl here with us from C School. And C School is a captain school where you can get your captain's license. I'm really excited to talk about the process, the requirements, and everything involved in the captaining world and process. So, Ken, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate it. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about your background, because I believe C School is a family business, and how did you get in, and what's your boating story?
My boating story is quite vast. C School started in 1977 with my father, my mother, my brother, and oddly enough, not so much myself. I actually had plans to go to sea. And so I was one of the first students at C School. I got my captain's license and I went out to work commercially in the oil industry at that time. I have always been boating. I've boated since I was 3 years old. I've owned my own boat since I was 9. I've run everything from 8 feet to 800 feet and everything in the middle. So my background's pretty vast. But since 2015, I came back to C School to work with them because I feel so strongly in what they do, and I want to be able to help impart what I've learned over these years in operation at sea with our students.
Yeah, that's great. The actual hands-on, what happens on the water. So there's a question, I think, from people out there that are interested in this, and they say, hey, what are the types of captain's licenses that are out there? Because they hear six-pack and they say, I don't know if that's the right one for me, you know, a 25-ton or a 50-ton, 100-ton. What are the licenses and how do they work?
Okay, that's a good question, Matt. A lot of people don't realize there are two basic entry-level licenses, meaning anybody with barely any boating background can actually get into and achieve right off the bat. From ground zero, you can get the six-pack license, also known as the operator of uninspected passenger vessels, and it's good for boats up to 200 gross tons, up to 100 miles offshore of the U.S., and allows you to carry on boats under 100 tons up to 6 paying passengers, on boats over 100 tons, 12 paying passengers. From there, we can move on to the Master 100, which is also an entry-level license as well. The difference is the six-pack requires 360 days of boating experience, where the Master requires 720 days of past boating trips accrued over your lifetime.
Right.
So a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. Now, how does that differ from like a boating safety class that some states require? Are they synonymous? Can they be interchanged? Or are they totally different?
Well, that's a good question. They are totally different. The basic boating courses, safety courses that the state of, for instance, Florida mandates for those operating boats over 10 horsepower are basically boating 101. They talk a little bit about boat handling, a little bit about rules of the road, a little bit about buoys, a little bit about safety. It's an introduction at best. And what we do is taking that to the power of 20. What we're going to do is take the average boater and we're going to turn them into super captains, basically. These guys are going to be learning all of the rules of the road, all boat handling, weather, buoyage, navigation, safety, first aid, firefighting, radio, telephone, how to make a mayday call, how to keep your passengers safe while they're under your control. That's the biggest thing, is we want to bring everybody home healthy and happy and safe.
Yeah, that boating safety, it's a good baseline, but it is such a baseline, and then you start stepping up. Now, for most people, that are, hey, I want to do some charter fishing and take some people. We had Boat Setter on the expo, where you can actually have your boat and you can captain it, so you make sure it's in good shape and they're safe with it. Is that where the 6-pack license would come in? Is that the most appropriate for that type of setup, would you say?
Yeah, that's right, Matt. What happens is, if you want to carry just about any mass-produced fiberglass boat, is called an uninspected boat. And for an uninspected boat, you can carry no more than typically 6 paying passengers plus your crew on board. Once you want to go a higher number of passengers, typically the boat has to be, even the plans have to be inspected by the Coast Guard. They want to look at the construction, how it was built, the fire suppression systems, the alarm systems, the wiring. I mean, they go over every single aspect, even the construction materials, to make sure that this boat is going to be safe to carry more than 6. So pretty much anybody out there with a small boat can carry up to 6 paying passengers. In essence, you can make your boat help pay back some of its expenses.
Yeah, yep, that's exactly what we talked about in that Boat Setter interview, and it was a valuable conversation. But I knew this would kind of coexist, because you have to have the captain's license, and I knew that there were some people that had a lot of questions out there. So we'll focus on the 6-pack a little bit. Talk about the time, the effort. You mentioned 365 days of logged boating experience. What are the requirements, and what's that look like to get your 6-pack?
Sure, that's a really good question, Matt. A lot of people don't understand how simple it is, and documenting and logging your sea time isn't necessary. The Coast Guard has some forms, and you fill out this form. It asks the make of the boat, the size of the boat, the length, the beam, the registration numbers of the boat, and then it gives you blocks that you can sort of put into average number of days that you believe that you've gone out in that boat. And what we like to do is start with the most recent, say this month, and start working backwards as necessary to accrue the time you need. You need 360 days of boating. Of that 360, 90 of those days should be offshore. There are some exceptions. You can get an inland 6-pack license too, if you don't have offshore time. And 90 days of that sea time should be within the last 3 years. And so
there's some recency to it. So you want to make sure that boating time has been recent. That's interesting about the offshore. I had a guy from, I believe he was from Michigan. Is there anything different on the Great Lakes?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. The Great Lakes recently have been considered near coastal waters because of their size, and you're actually getting credit for an offshore license using Great Lakes sea time experience in your background. And so that's a nice thing to do. But there are a lot of folks out there that are operating on lakes and waterways and maybe even the intercoastal waterway, and they really never venture out past the jetties. And so don't worry, those folks are eligible for a license too. We can get them a mate inland or a master inland or even a 6-pack with an inland restriction on it. So there's a lot of options out there for folks that don't have any desire to venture beyond the lakes, bays, and bayous.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about cost and time invested in the actual course and the test and getting prepped for that, because that's the big thing, right?
It is. There's a lot of ways that it's conveyed nowadays. With the COVID situation going on, the online courses are pretty busy. The newest edition is called a distance learning course. This is great because it's just like this. It's a Zoom meeting class. All the students, and we limit it to 10, are interacting with one another and the instructor. And if I've got a question, I can pipe in at any second and ask that question. And the instructor has the option of either explaining it verbally using hand gestures or actually sharing his screen and explaining through a drawing or a demonstration exactly how to better understand what's going on. These are nice because they're done in the comfort of your own home, and you know, you don't have to worry about interacting with a bunch of people if you don't want to, and that has grown hugely in popularity. And in fact, we're having a difficult time finding enough instructors that don't mind doing Zoom meetings to train, but we've got it down perfect. The visual aids that we have, the presentations that we have are perfect, and they lend themselves to learning. The students often actually get together in private rooms after the class is over and continue working together until they've honed their skills to the point. The in-classroom class, which is still by far the most popular, is a Coast Guard approved 54-hour program that we're in there typically Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday, and Sunday for 2 weeks in a row, or we'll do all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. We call that 2 fat weekends.
Yeah.
And so we're still getting the 54 hours of training in. The students love it. The instructors are there to lean over your shoulder. We're masked, but we lean over your shoulder and we're going to help you out, because our goal is to make sure that you have success. We want to make dreams come true. We want to hold your hand till it holds a license. And so through these 3 methods, we found a perfect success ratio to be able to get students through either online or distance learning if they're far away and they can't visit a classroom or for some other reason. And then the classrooms go after a certain crowd too. Not everybody can learn off a computer.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what the content would look like in those 3 fat weekends or 2 fat weekends. I know Captain Spivey, that is one of your course instructors. What is it that Captain Spivey is teaching? What is it that you're learning on those distance learning classes or the online? Give me just a couple examples.
Sure. Yeah. Well, what we're going to do in those classes, we're going to take some rather dry information, rules of the road, and we're going to try to make it pretty exciting. We're going to try to make it easy to understand. We're going to wrap it up with stories and other analogies. We're going to use all little memory joggers and word association to make it easier to learn, to make it more engaging to learn, and to actually have somebody there to explain it to you. We're going to start off with some rules of the road. There's 38 of them. We're going to explain those. And that itself takes us almost 16 hours to get through. That's what students call the biggest portion. The next biggest portion that we move is chart navigation. And a lot of people are GPS navigators, and they're not really familiar with how to lay out a chart, how to plot a course, how to determine how much distance is between where they're leaving and where they're going to, and more important, to read the dangers en route, submerged, obstacles, shallows, understand the buoy systems better. We're going to teach how to forecast weather. We're going to basically teach boat handling. If you get a little nervous when you approach the dock or when you approach the boat trailer at the ramp, we're going to explain and show you some fantastic tips on how to take a lot of the stress away, and to make sure that you don't have to go, honey, I'm sorry what I said at the boat ramp. I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
Things. We all know boat ramps are a great source of entertainment on the weekends. If you've got nothing to do, you grab a cold beer, grab a lawn chair, and you're bound to have plenty of hours of entertainment over there. Some people, for all people, we're going to be teaching radio techniques. We're going to be teaching firefighting, life-saving, and survival skills along the way with maintenance, regulations, and basically how to avert emergencies, or if one does occur, how to handle it cool, calm, and make sure that you can get help and everybody gets back to the dock safe.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And I mean, there's a lot to know in the, to me, some of the most valuable things are those practical, hey, come into the dock and here's some tips on bringing it into the dock and doing it like a pro, putting it on the trailer like a pro. And then there's also those, hey, this is just going to make your boating more fun overall. Knowing how to maintain your boat properly, making sure that everybody's safe on the boat, making sure that you don't run aground or do something just dumb that is easily avoidable if you knew what to look out for. And there's a lot of, yes, you can use this to make some money. You can use this to build a business. But there's also just some practical things that this is going to make you a better boater. And it's kind of cool to call yourself a captain. I mean, there's some of that too that goes in it, I think.
There's a couple of things we're so well connected with the Coast Guard. We've been working hand in hand with them for 44 years now. For the past 30 some odd years, we were the very first school that got Coast Guard approval to avoid going to the Coast Guard and take a test. It was a pilot program. C School's going to do the training. C School's going to conduct the examination, and it worked out really well. And throughout the years, we built a very big trust with the Coast Guard, and we've sat on a lot of the review boards looking at regulations and how exams are given and what type of material is needed to make sure that these people can go out in their boat, have a great time, make a buck doing it, and do it safely and get everybody back happy and healthy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit about cost. I mean, is this several $1,000s to get your captain's license? What does that look like?
Okay, that's a good question. That is a question on everybody's mind. We're all trying to save a buck. We know that boat stands for break out another 1,000. So if we can help save a little bit of money, we'd love to be able to do that. The typical course, it varies. If it's an online course, you're probably looking at about 400 and change for the online program, somewhere thereabouts. There are a few of them on the market. There's a couple of Johnny-come-latelys that are starting to do online programmings. You want to be really careful with some of these newer schools. The Coast Guard has got a huge investigation going on right now, blanketing the United States to find out who the bad actors are. And you don't want to get roped up with one of those, because then they start going after their clients and try to determine whether they got their license legitimately or not. Stick with the players that have been around a long time. The other programs, the distance learning and the classroom courses, cost the same. They're vary a little bit depending on where you are geographically, but typically about $630, $650, somewhere right in that area. Truth is, by the time everything's said and done, you're going to have invested almost $1,000 into the program, soup to nuts, when you're done, because you're going to need a Coast Guard physical, you're going to need a drug test, you're going to end up getting what's called a TWIC card, or Transportation Workers ID. That's actually who does the background and the character checks on captains to make sure that you're not wanted, or you're not dangerous, or you haven't got any criminal history, at least significantly criminal history. A couple of DUIs might be in there, I don't know, but it's not a write-off. Always check with us to see if your historical issue is a problem or not. There's a certain number of steps that we have to follow depending on what skeletons are in one's closet, so to speak. Typically, if it's minor stuff, it's not a problem at all. Anyway, so yeah, by the time you get the drug test, the Coast Guard fee, the physical, the CPR and first aid, the TWIC card, you're probably out of pocket $1,000. And what I'd like to do is tell you for a second a little bit about online courses versus classroom courses. We all know you're going to save a little money in the online course, but you need to look at what the value of your time is. And what I'm pushing, of course, is the distance learning and the classroom programs. I feel they're better, And there's a lot of people that agree with me, because when you self-study, or when you go on a social media platform and start asking for advice, you're getting a lot of, we used to call them dockside lawyers. We get people that are giving you their best advice, but the problem is you're getting hundreds of people all giving you different advice. You're buying books, you're buying software, you're getting applications for your phone. It's going to drive you crazy. You might as well go to a Barnes and Noble, read everything on every shelf, and that's pretty much the advice you're getting. So you got to put a dollar figure on what your time is worth. Now, going to a 54-hour class, it's pinpointed, it's streamlined, it's dedicated, and we've got instructors that are motivating you, and they're guiding you to follow our successful program to achieve results in the least amount of time. So if you think about what your time's worth, 1,000 hours studying on your own, or 54 hours in a classroom, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think you're right about it's a better version of the education. For me anyway, face-to-face is always better than trying to do it on my own and stay consistent on my own. Now that leads into the test. What kind of success rate? And you do have to take a written, a verbal, not a practical on the water test though, right?
That's correct. It's a good point, Matt. I'm glad you brought that up. There is no requirement in our class for any on-the-water activity, which might strike a few people as odd. But on the other hand, you got to look at it and realize that these people are pretty much coming in the door with a minimum of 360 days of boating that they can log, or 720 days of boating. So these people aren't brand new to boating. They've got some experience. Going to have to back you up on that one. I lost
the test, the Coast Guard test that you guys administer.
Okay, yeah, the Coast Guard exam at the Coast Guard, of course, is not easy. It's usually held at the Regional Exam Center. There's about, I think there's about 7 or 11 of them throughout the United States. That was something that was hot back in the early 80s. Since the approved schools came out, we pretty much give the exams for the Coast Guard. Now, we don't write the questions. We use the Coast Guard's questions. We submit them to the Coast Guard for their approval. If they like them, they give us the okay, and we issue those exams. For the six-pack, the exam is really made of just 4 parts. There's rules of the road, and that's typically 50 questions that you've got to get a 90% on, so you can miss 5 questions out of 50, and we're going to make sure that you don't miss that many. The next toughest section is chart navigation or plotting, and there's 10 questions on that, and you have to have a 90% on that as well. So this is where people tend to have the most stories or talk about their experiences of studying and learning rules of the road and chart plotting. It's because of that 90%. It makes them a little nervous, but relax. You're in good hands. Certainly at C-School, we're going to make sure you know all of the work, how to do it, how to remember it, how to retain it, and every little memory trick and word association we have. The last 2 parts are deck navigation and navigation general. Nav general is the area where we talk about tides and currents. We talk about weather in there. We talk about buoy systems in that part of the exam. And that's a 70% section, so you'll be happy to hear that. You've got a little more room for error. We're not going to take advantage of that. The deck general section is the basic. It's going to talk a little bit about safety. We're going to talk about tying lines or knots, line handling. We call it marlin spike seamanship. We're going to talk about boat handling and maneuvering. We're going to get into all of those aspects. Firefighting is all inside deck general. If your boat starts to sink, what do you do? If you catch on fire, what do you do? If you see smoke, how do you handle it? Do you have to turn your boat a certain direction? Should you? Well, all that's covered in class, but that's the last 70% section. Now, our students typically have a 90% average passing rate. So we work really hard to ensure that 90 out of 100 are going to make it through there without any problems. They're all going to walk away with a license and go have a pina colada under the umbrella somewhere.
The time to celebrate. That's right. Now, are there any ongoing requirements once you pass? Is it a lifetime license, or are there some continuing education, continuing steps?
That's a good question. Yeah, license is typically good for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you can easily renew it. You don't have to go through class all over again. There are 5 different ways to renew a license. You just pick which one's easiest for you. The 2 most popular are to show 360 days of boating during that 5 years of holding the license. It could be private boating, pleasure boating, commercial boating. It can be any type of boating on any type of boat. And you can renew your license simply by getting a new physical and a drug test. The second method that's very popular is the classroom portion, which is a 1-day renewal refresher class for people that either don't have the 360 days or they don't want to bother digging it up and logging it, putting it on the Coast Guard forums. They say, heck with it. I'm just going to go to sea school. I'm going to get entertained in class all day. We're going to have a good time. I'm going to learn a little bit. I'm going to refresh on a few things. And at the end of the day, they're going to get a certificate, which they turn into the Coast Guard to renew their license for another 5 years. There's another one for people who get their license and feel like they don't really want to use it, but on the other hand, they don't want to let it go either. And that's called a renewal for continuity. And that basically means you can put that license on a permanent hold until you feel like renewing it. You can put it on hold for 30 or 40 years. One time with one renewal for continuity, and 30 years later, you retire, you decide, hey, this is something I want to do now. I got time. The family's grown. The kids are out. I've got an empty nest going on. I can do what I love to do. Now you can reactivate that license very simply by jumping through the usual renewal process of either showing the 360 days or taking a class for 1 day and being done with it.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize there was that continuity pause you could put on there. I didn't realize that was something that you could do. So if say I love this, it's interesting. I'm meeting great people in the classes. I love my instructor and built a friendship there. I've got my 6-pack. What are the steps that you can kind of go up the ladder on if you want to start getting into some more advanced things? What are your school offerings and what are the Coast Guard offerings?
Well, Sea School has nearly 50 approved Coast Guard different courses, or different Coast Guard courses, as it were. The 6-pack and the 100-ton are basically the lower end of what we do. When you move up above the 100-ton, there's a 200-ton level, there's a 500, you get into a 1,600/3,000-ton level. Then you move into the unlimited levels where you end up with a 3rd mate, 2nd mate, chief mate, and then finally, Captain Stubing of the Love Boat with his Master Unlimited, any gross tons, all oceans license. So that's the highest you can get. You can run the biggest thing in the world with that license. And so there's numerous courses or auxiliary courses that you can take that are required when you move up in levels. There's a basic training course or a basic safety training program. That's a 5-day program. We're teaching life-saving, we're teaching survival, we're teaching hands-on firefighting, we're teaching advanced life support. And so during that 5 days, we're visiting the pool, we're in a raft, we're in survival suits, we're out at the fire field putting out fires, we're going in smoke-filled rooms to find a person that's down and out and unconscious. We're bringing them back out, and then we're learning the life support techniques to help bring them back to life. And so this program, we believe, is probably, it doesn't lend itself just to those above 200 tons. That's where it's required. But it's great for everyone, because if you're going to be out in cold weather, we're going to teach you how to handle it. If you had a fire on your boat, you know that's one of the most terrifying things that can ever happen. And having the peace of mind and the confidence of the techniques that we've taught in class, putting out live fires, just brings so much more to the table when you have a situation like that. And that's not for just certain people. I mean, anybody could have a fire. I was looking at social media the other day, and I saw a guy riding a personal watercraft, pulling away from the dock and watching it explode underneath him in fires. He just left the fuel dock. So there are things like that this course will lend itself to. Another mention I wanted to make, besides the additional courses, is the push to have numerous people in the family trained. If going out in the boat is just the husband and wife, and you rely all the time on the husband to run the boat and get you back safely, what's going to happen if, God forbid, something happens to that person and they're incapacitated and they can't get you back to the dock like they have so many times before? Do you have the confidence and the knowledge to perform medical procedures to help that during that magic hour to get them back to the dock or to summons help to make sure that your loved ones are safe? So we love to see the husband and wife teams come in. We're a multi-generational school. We've had lots and lots of kids and grandkids attend after the grandfather took the course. It's always great to see that. But back to the auxiliary courses. There are so many, from terrestrial navigation, celestial navigation, radar courses, automatic radar plotting aids or ARPA, electronic charting called ECDIS, GMDSS, which is Global Marine Distress and Safety Systems, advanced and basic firefighting. The list just goes on and on and on of the programs that we teach that will help you gain more and more confidence and knowledge and be just that much better of a boat operator.
I think there's a combination of it's going to make you more competent. More confidence is always valuable on the water. I mean, the more confidence you have, the more fun it's going to be. But there's also just it's interesting. It's fun, and it's things that are going to be valuable to in your life. And you're also going to meet some people with very similar interests. And I imagine there's probably a social aspect to it after the class is all over, that you probably keep in touch with the folks that were in your class and that are involved in this world.
You're right, Matt. There's a special kind of captain's club out there that those that have attended a course and have walked a mile in those shoes have a certain respect when they know what somebody else did to get that. They have a lot of fun. The stories are unbelievable. The journeys, the voyages people take, the stories, they just, you won't believe the stories that you get. I mean, the fish I caught, to the close call I had, to helping somebody in an emergency, to boat parties and raft parties, and even the guys up in the Lake of the Ozarks with their party cove. The stories of the experiences and the places people have gone and sailed to, cruised and visited. Everybody in class is different, and that's what makes it so much fun. Some are cruisers, some are sailors, some are fishermen, some are divers. Some want to run a water taxi. Some want to do sunset cruises. It's such a wide variety. If you want fishing tips, it's a great place to go. You're gonna learn about all the greatest, and the friendships that you build in class, they're gonna last. They're gonna last a long time. You can't hardly walk a dock around here without at least a few captains seeing one another and recognizing them from class or somewhere else. Sea School has trained 47% of every licensed holder in United States.
Wow.
250 some odd schools, we've done the lion's share. And you can't find a dock in the United States where there's not somebody that's attended our class or knows somebody else that went through it as well. So you're going to have a lot of fun and make a lot of good friends at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. So, okay, so there's somebody out there that's watching this that says, you know what, Ken, this is something I need to do. What suggestions would you have for them when it's I need to get my six pack? Well, what suggestions do you have to make sure that they pass, that they have the best experience, and that they get where they want to go?
It's a good question, Matt. I think what the best advice I can give, and it's not going to be a real short one, but the advice I can give is stop listening to everything you hear on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, social media. There is some good information there, but they're not going to give you their best advice. The best thing to do, I would think, is to call our 800 Best One number, talk to our operators. We have career counselors. And if you're straight and you tell us what you want to do, we're going to ask you the right questions. We're going to ask you about your experience, where you operate, and we're going to try to get you the very best license to do what you want to do, to help guide you career-wise, dream-wise, plans-wise, to get you going in the least amount of time. We don't have a one plan fits all. Everybody has a different desire. They have a different dream. They want to learn about their particular goal. And what we want to do, of course, is to guide them as quickly as possible to exactly what they're looking to do. And you really can't get that, I don't believe, just going on a website and reading what somebody has to offer. Talk to the people. We've got people there that'll ask you the questions. If they don't, you can certainly ask them, draw it out of them. They'll ask you all the important things and make sure that this is what you want, this is what you need, and so forth. A big one we get is about liability. Some people are afraid of a captain's license. They feel that it's going to make them more liable. Well, the truth is, everybody with a boat is liable for gross negligence. And so what we want to do is train you to not have any situations like that happen, to follow the procedures and the general, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, the accepted standards of operation to make sure that you don't fall into that. And the good part about having a license is you've been trained, you've been tested, you've been vetted by the United States Coast Guard to carry passengers for hire. You actually carry less liability than somebody without because you've got the background training. You carry the credentials of the U.S. Coast Guard. They don't just give those away to everybody. So it really lends itself to lessening your liability rather than having more of it. I get crazy questions, Matt. I got to tell you, one of them I remember is, guy says, I've got a captain's license, but I'm on my friend's boat and he drives a little crazy. I don't even want to mention to anybody on board I got a license because I'll be responsible. Well, the truth is you're not responsible. You don't have anything to worry about other than maybe the driver of the boat. So you might want to take them aside and go, hey, we might want to tone this down a little bit, or here's the way I do it. I don't know if it'll help you, but give them some nice tips and suggestions. But you don't carry any liability just by merely having a license. If you're not the one in charge of that boat, you're not hired as the captain, you have zero liability. Don't worry about it. But what you have is the knowledge, the insight, and the background to know when something's right or know when something's wrong. It's the training. It's what we do. So, that's one of the things that's important.
Yeah, that's great advice. And those questions, I've seen some on social media, the questions about captain's license. I think you've answered about everyone that I've seen and that I've come up with. So if somebody is interested and they say, hey, yeah, I want to do this, I want to talk to somebody, how can they get in touch with you or your folks at Sea School there to get more information, get the ball rolling, and maybe start the journey to getting their six pack?
That's a good question. And it's easy to get a hold of us. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We've got www.cschool.com. We have numerous Facebook pages as well. In fact, each one of our offices has their own Facebook page. So you could type in cschool/Fort Lauderdale, cschool/Charleston, Panama City, Toledo, New York, Bayou La Battery, Jacksonville, St. Pete. They've all got their own pages. We've got somebody working over there to make sure we answer any questions that we get, or you can always call us at 1-800-BEST-1. Another good way to find us is just simply Google. Just type into Google, C-School, whatever area you happen to be in, maybe Jacksonville, and you'll actually get the local Jacksonville office's phone number where you can talk to people right there that care about the license you get and truly desire to help you achieve your dream.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's I encourage, if you're looking at the boat setter opportunity, I think this is an absolute must. If you're somebody like me that says, hey, I just want to have it just for my personal satisfaction. I mean, I got my my VFR license to fly an airplane, not because I had dreams of being a Delta pilot, but I just wanted that challenge. I was interested. And I think this is that same type of thing for a lot of people. Is I'm either going to use it in the boat setter or charter world, or I just want that satisfaction of knowing I did it. I did something hard. And I did something I'm going to be able to use practically on my boat. So that's awesome. Ken, what didn't I ask you? What haven't we talked about that we should have? Anything that we missed here?
Well, the only small one I can think, and you touched on it there, was who can attend class? And the answer to that is we take anyone 18 to 80 in class. We have great success with all of them. And you don't have to have a boating background to attend class. If we've got room in the class and you want to just ramp up your own game on your boat, maybe you don't want the license, that's fine. You don't have to get the license. Come in and get the training, get the knowledge. Because what you're going to learn is that you can never know it all. What we're going to give you is entry-level boating, and we're going to try to make sure you understand that this is where the learning begins. By no means is it an end. You're going to learn the questions that you didn't know to ask. You're going to learn what other people are doing. You're going to be a so much better boat operator, even if you don't want the license. So for the safety aspect, the confidence aspect, the bragging rights, it's all good stuff. It's going to make you a better boater, and you're going to be helping set a better example for other boaters on the water with your professional integrity in how you operate. It makes it better for all boaters. The more knowledge that we have, the better we're going to work. We all enjoy that same piece of water.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that's a great place to stop. There's a lot of advantages to it. cschool.com, get your information there. Ken, thank you so much for sharing. This was insightful for me. I think our listeners got a lot out of it as they're